I'm Don.
And hi, I'm Cindy, and welcome to Pearls of Liberty, April 29th, 2012. We are flying without a flight plan today. We usually work a little bit from notes, but it's been a busy weekend and it's going to be a busy week, so we wanted to say hello and give our impressions of a Republic meeting that we were in yesterday, the Free State of California, and we had an assembly meeting. It was quite interesting. Would you like to introduce the thoughts?
Yeah, we want to give you just the stuff as we process it, and keep in mind we are works in progress. This is liberty in our hearts, in the making, and we're making it up as we go. So this is not the final answer on everything, but we wanted to share our thoughts with you in the hopes that it would spur you on to process and think about the things that are happening in this world, and there's a lot going on.
Yes, there is a lot going on. It's rumored, and it's actually slightly more than rumor, that global settlements and prosperity packages are being released this weekend, this week, and we're hearing stories of funding being released in various places. We heard yesterday, although I think you were aware of it a little earlier, of a very significant German banker having been arrested 2 weeks ago. Would you like to talk about that a little?
A little bit. I didn't study the story in detail because I don't really know the guy's background, and I haven't had the time to dig into it, and his name escapes me at the moment. But this is very, very high-level New World Order stuff that this guy has been brought into custody. And he is at the head of controlling such things as hit squads and stuff like that. And I would even venture to say, this is pure speculation on my part, but guys like Cheney answer to this guy. So the fact that they brought this guy into custody and he's singing like a songbird, like a choir.
The Mormon
boy,
Tabernacle Choir was
which
the
is
quote
not
heard.
anything against Mormons. It's the only reason I didn't say that.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. There's a, yeah, just whatever phrase you can use to say how freely this guy is talking. He's talking a lot, and that's a good thing for the forces of liberty, really. I mean, so much happening on this planet that is just breaking loose, and at the same time you have stuff happening locally that could get people discouraged, but it's, I think, the death throes, although it could be go on for a while, I'm sure it will go on for a while, of this beast that's in like a cornered rat. And I'm thinking of things like the news report out this morning that a man that was associated with the death of a coroner involved in examining Andrew Breitbart's death, suspicious death, turns up dead, perhaps from poisoning. So this kind of stuff is still continuing to happen. These guys are continuing to try to keep the word from coming out, but it'll not succeed, because the forces of liberty really are rising up, and people are not gonna, they're just seeing through the con game like never before. It's great stuff.
Absolutely, it is great stuff. And we'll have the name and position of the guy, the German guy, or the gentleman in Germany, I'm not sure if he's German, but who was recently arrested. And we also, over this weekend in the Free State of California Assembly meeting yesterday, I heard some very interesting things regarding the approach that the Republic has taken up to this point, and also issues with the Constitution perhaps being crafted in another country by people who were planning a corporate takeover at some point. So I'm not really sure exactly where you want to start with all that.
I'll start from my own thoughts, and there are things that I knew about in the background that I just kind of put on the shelf because there wasn't really a way to integrate them into the current discussion, which is among liberty people pretty much coalesced around invigorating the Constitution in whatever manner that happens. The Constitution is the rallying cry, the gathering point of people that love liberty. Well, there's a shift in that happened for us this weekend, and some of those facts that were brought out by interim California Governor Ken Cousins, that and we'll put the link to his talk on in the blog here so you can see it for yourself. But some of those things I did know about. One of the key people for me, although I haven't read him exhaustively, is Lysander Spooner, and a lot of libertarians know about him. And one of his famous treatises is The Constitution of No Authority. And what Ken presented to us was the idea, and here's some of the basic concepts, that the Articles of Confederation talk about a perpetual union. Contrary to what we may have stated in previous weeks, I'm not sure if we did or not, but the Constitution could not have overridden or abrogated or abolished the Articles of Confederation, because those speak of a perpetual union. The Constitution itself, on the other hand, doesn't really presume to have made any demands upon future generations, and really, according to Spooner, this is me, not Ken talking, but according to Spooner, it really was only binding on the people that signed it. And then they just sort of led people in this direction without any binding authority. And that's some of the problems with the Constitution. I've heard those thoughts expressed before, and my answer had always been, well, they talk about we the people, and they were delegated representatives of the people, and they set up a form of government, and that was what the people did and what they inhabited. And I'm sure there's a certain amount of force to that, but what Ken brought forward, and I can't get into the details because I don't have the kind of legal mind that he does, but he talked about how there were certain deficiencies in the way that the legal language, the specifics of the language of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, such that they were never really had full legal standing. And again, this is my terminology, my way of describing what Ken said, so I'm going to study those things more, and I encourage you to do that too. But what we're processing in our hearts is the concept that liberty in our day and age and in our time does not necessarily have to be synonymous with the Constitution. And again, I'll throw out the name Lysander Spooner. I'm reading him right now, and it's great stuff. He talks about how really all governments are, he just cuts through the nitty-gritty. All the governments is anybody that has the power of money that can hire soldiers can form a government. And there's a lot of evidence that surreptitiously behind the scenes, that's the kind of thing that happened in the formation of the early United States, and that those early guys were scammed too, did not see through everything. And there's other things that I may have talked about before about why did Cornwallis leave so willingly, and there's record of a conversation he had with Washington in which he stated that the Britain would take over the colonies that thought they were now free, and that they really weren't. And some of the things that Ken talked about were some of the mechanisms of that, of King George actually being on the treasurer-in-chief or some such title, exchequer, that meant that he was in charge of the treasury of the United States in its early formation. So the seeds were planted really deeply, really early, and a lot of people, including the founders, were naive. No, I'm saying they were naive, not sellouts. That's my viewpoint. But some people might choose to believe that they were just had an interest in their own property. I think that when I read Jefferson, I find such a heart for the freedom in every human heart. I can't consider that he's a sellout. But there is more corruption in the world, and it goes deeper than we think. And this is the time that light is being shown on all of those deeds of darkness, if you want to call it that, that have been not only in recent years but throughout the centuries. And we're at a time when we need to open our eyes and begin to walk in the full light that we are given, and not owe allegiance to anything other than unalienable rights that were granted to us by our Creator, and figure out anew in this day and age, and yet somehow tie them to the past so that they have force of historical contract and can be, yeah, the force of custom, so that we can have legitimacy in this day and age. And it's not an easy thing to do, but we want to share our journey with you. This is totally raw, and hopefully it makes some sense.
Sure. So really, I think we've shared everything significant, unless there's anything you want to say. I'll give you a second. I do just, one thing occurs to me. Years ago, and I'm talking in the very early 80s, a pastor once said from the pulpit in a meeting where I was present, in order to be disillusioned, you must have first been illusioned. And we tend to think of disillusion as loss of innocence or a sad thing. The reality is, if we lose our illusions, then we begin to see more clearly what reality is. And whatever we're doing to pursue truth, justice, love, peace, I should have mentioned love first, it all needs to be in the real world. And I'm not saying that to dissociate from faith or an internal belief system, but we have intentionally been fooled over the millennia, and to have an illusion is going to cause you, it's like building a house on a bad foundation. It'll be crooked, things won't fit. So this is a good time to get rid of illusions.
And this is what, in my opinion, Jesus meant when he was saying, pray thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. You can't keep your eyes set on earthly things like the Constitution and think that's the be-all, end-all, and that's where we have to get. Yes, it was given divinely. Yes, it was great form of government, checks and balances, that all that's great stuff. But unless we keep our eyes on the author of truth and the truth that he's revealing to us in this world here and now, we'll miss it. We'll miss the mark, and we will be subject to deception.
Sure, and Jesus also said, a little leaven leavens the whole lump. If your worldview is mostly accurate, but you have even just a small portion of deception incorporated into your worldview, that little portion of deception will, it's like a root that comes up underground and chokes out, or leaven. I mean, what a perfect example. If you've ever baked bread, you put a little bit of yeast in the dough, you work it in a little bit, and all of a sudden the yeast is throughout the bread, and the bread has become a completely different entity or compound, if you will, that it changes from just a lump of flour and water into a living thing that grows. So, and deception is like that. A little bit of deception will get into every corner of your life over time, and as we've mentioned before too, so very slight diversion from the path. It doesn't look like much here, but when you take it out here, you're off the path. So we need to try to get things right.
Yeah, that's why it's so important to go back to historical roots and some of these things that Ken talks about, and that the Constitution not being the organically grown document that we think that it was, that there's some evidence that it was a seed that was planted that was not. Well, hey, oh, this is one thing that I wanted to point out, mention earlier. I knew there was something I was forgetting. One of the first thoughts I had when Kim presented the material that he presented was, I have known for some time from listening to Bill Thornton in his introductory talks on 1213.org that the Constitution is a legal trust. He said it has all the ingredients of a trust, which is a corporate document. So the United States was set up, motorcycle, the United States was set up as a trust originally. So when in the Republic we've constantly been hearing, and I think this is on the history page too, that the United States became a corporation after the Civil War, whatever the exact year was, that due to the work of Abraham Lincoln, etc., and trying to get out from under the national debt, etc., but never mention any evidence that the United States was set up as a corporate trust. And I consider Bill Thornton to be a great legal mind, self-taught and totally regarding common law. So he mentioned that. So that put me on the same page as this information as it was going out, because that all had always been there in the back of my mind. Well, yeah, this is the foundation we're building on. Yeah, the story's a little bit off, but now I think the story's getting adjusted, and that's a good thing.
Good. Yeah, it's better to be, while things are in flux now, there's change. It's best if we can do our best to incorporate as much truth as possible, and because over time, whatever we build now is likely to be corrupted.
Yeah, and bottom line is we have to stay flexible and open to the truth. As soon as we have a rigid lock on something and we call that the truth, then we're actually shutting ourselves off from truth, because the revelation isn't going to get through that mindset.
And over time, as Don and I both read through the Bible every year, and I'll just use this as an example, don't be offended if you're not a Christian. We begin with ideas, people have told us things, we've heard doctrine, we've heard theology, and as we read the Bible, and we accept that, as we read the Bible, our outlook on what it all means changes continually. And I just want to say that to highlight what you're saying, that it's not like somebody hands us a gift and says, here's all the truth right here, just open it up and you'll get it immediately. We all have been through things that color our opinions and that color our outlook, and as we age, we need to remain flexible, as Don said.
This is why Christians speak of the Bible as being living revelation. Well, you can read, and this is a common experience for us, and we share our understandings. We read through passages that we've read many times before, and it's new, it's fresh. And why is that? Because we're open to the Spirit of God. And we think of Bible as a special book that way, but that doesn't mean that only happens with the Bible. That happens with lots of things, and that results from an attitude of being open to fresh revelation. As soon as I'm repeating myself, but as soon as you think you have a lock on it, the Bible or whatever it is, and you know what it means, and there's not a new way of looking at it, then you've shut yourself off from divine guidance.
Sure. And the Bible teacher Bob Mumford used to say, when you're strong, you're wrong. In other words, if you have an opinion that is inflexible and overpowering to other opinions,
which isn't really strong in my opinion, but I know what he means.
Take a look at it and I mean, you know, just the way we're wired, a lot of times we are the most vehement about ideas, that we're the least sure of somewhere in our subconscious.
Oh, and here's a real subtle thing that some people that I know get tripped up at, and they pick up on that idea: when you're strong, you're wrong. And when somebody takes a strong stance that you have to be open and you have to be flexible and you have to be, you know, various ideas of the libertarian philosophy. So to some people, somebody that is strong in their opinion that you have to have freedom and liberty and limited government and those things, then you become wrong. So it's you have to look at the substance, not the style. This is not, and that to me is a symptom of a person that focuses on style and not substance. The substance of this is the revelation itself. The style of it is the, you know, however you communicate with force or with subtlety, whether you're wearing Birkenstocks or army boots, or whether you speak in a lisping NPR voice, or whether you rant and rave like Alex Jones. Those are all style things. But the substance is the actual revelation, the actual knowledge, the actual understanding of the material. So we're that's getting way philosophical. But we probably ought to end.
Well, here's a final thought, because what you said reminded me of a quote from Joe versus the Volcano. Joe, you have to get into a flexible frame.